Greetings and welcome to this installment of Introductory Solid Modeling with SolidWorks. And we have been working through a series of tools, and we are now on the adjustable part of the Crescent Wrench. In order to produce this, we started actually with the Crescent Wrench handle, and we're going to base this somewhat off the design intent of that. We started with the parts that are going to insert into the handle, and we'll start with that simple sketch, and then we made the main part of the jaw, and we shaped the outside, and then made a chamfer. This needs to slide into the slot, and filleted appropriately, put the draft in, made this boss, and put some fillets around it. Then we cut through the bottom here so that it would intersect properly with the worm gear, and of course we patterned that. And we finished off the shape by cutting here and cutting off that little lip that was left over from the pattern. So let's get started. As before, we need to figure out what we're going to do with the front plane, the top plane, and the right plane. Well, the front plane has so far been the plane that is parallel to the flat dimension of the crescent wrench. And on the right, we are going to sketch that cross section that kind of looks like a keyhole. So we'll sketch here. We could have chosen the main part of the jaw, but it would have been 6 of one, half dozen of the other. The difficulty in choosing this part is that the planes that are going through here, namely the top plane, goes through kind of the middle of this keyway section. So we're going to have some above and some below. But that was measured in the physical model, so we'll just deal with it. And I'm going to make a circle here, very similar to the way that we did it in the handle. Okay, and going to trim these entities here and make sure that the center is lined up vertically with that, and the origin's also lined up. Well, I'll right click here first, select the midpoint, hold the control key down, select the origin, make them vertically aligned. So now I don't have to worry about any of the symmetric issues and have to draw another center line. Sometimes that can be helpful. This time I chose not to. Okay, next I need to create the dimensions. Notice how I cut this circle, so now it's telling me it needs a radius. So I'm just going to pop in 0.152, and I'm going to right click on it again and go to display as diameter, and it is 0.30. Well, it's probably 0.304. Well, I want to change this so that things are always to 3 decimal places. Go up here, go to document properties, make sure I'm on ANSI, go to dimensions, primary precision, make it 3 decimal places, go to OK, and it is at 304. Okay, my next dimension is going to be from here up to our origin, and it's going to be 0.35. Then from our origin up to the top here, should be about 200. Now everything's almost good enough, except for this width. Should be 0.1. Everything is well defined and pretty much what we're looking for. Okay, next we're going to use that sketch in a feature, and it will be a simple extruded boss base, but we're going to do this on two sides. On one side, we're going to go 1/2 inch, and on the other side, click on direction 2, we're going to go 0.95 inches. Okay, that's pretty much what we're looking for. The reason that we went to different lengths for each side is because we wanted to orient the right plane in the right spot that it will mate up with the handle. So everything is going to be based off of these right planes and top planes, just like we were doing before. It's a lot less effort to do it ahead of time and think through it ahead of time than to have to backtrack and make extra planes and wonder why things aren't assembling properly. So our next step is to sketch on the front plane our sketch for the actual jaw feature. I want to use that line, go right above the origin, come over here, and then I'm going to make a 3-point arc. So I'm going to go here, here, then make the center come here. I could have used a Centerpoint arc, but I chose 3 points so I could make sure I hit those two spots. So I'm going to put this point right on this line, making them coincident. That will ensure that my arc comes straight at 90 degrees up out of here and over to here. Okay, I've got two dimensions that go on here. One goes from this far edge to here, and that's 0.358. And this line is 1.067. And strangely enough, that's all we needed to define this arc and these lines, and so we're good to go. Now we're going to take this sketch and, using features again, make another extruded boss base. This time though, won't be blind on either side, it will simply be mid-plane. Well, still a type of blind, and it will be 0.515 wide. The next thing we're going to do is cut the curve into this surface, and in the process cut some of this area down, even though we will put more material back in there, but for now I wanted to make a point. So we're going to use the top plane to sketch, and I'm going to sketch a curve first and a center point. Going to make something that's at least mostly tangent over there. So I'm going to go here. Oh, here it comes back around to that point. Okay, then I'm going to use a line coming up from here. There we go. And notice I can roll over here and then it'll start guiding me to that spot. Okay, hit escape. Escape again. I don't need to draw any more lines. I'm going to click on that, hold the control key, hit this, make them tangent. Next I'm going to put in some dimensions. Go from here. This radius should be 1.25. Okay. This line should really be collinear with that line. And this point needs to be made horizontally aligned with the origin, and now everything turns black. Okay, the next step is to take a revolved cut using that sketch. Oh, we never made an axis of revolution. Always the bummer. Okay, so we'll have to exit out of that, right click on the sketch, edit it, and put my center line right about at the center of that curve. So there you go, right there. And turned it black because it just assumed it's right on that center. So I'm good to go. Okay, now I can do my revolved cut. Oh, gotta select this. Oh, it immediately figured this out, but I don't want it to go all the way through everything. I just want it to go maybe 90 degrees from here up to here. So I'll call it 90. And of course, it chose the wrong 90. All I gotta do is click here, and it'll choose the correct 90. And, oh, it gave me a question. Which bodies do I want to keep? I'll keep all of them. And, oh dear, it left this thing here. Oh, I think that was part of the question. I'll bet you if I'd said selected bodies, I would have taken care of this. But I did want to use this as an example of why doing extra lines that go somewhere and you're not quite sure what their end result is kind of bad form. So they might leave something else out. They might cut things away that you don't mean to. So it's best to try to leave that design intent intact. Well, thing is, I'm actually going to use this in a succeeding feature. Okay, next we're going to go at these details from here, and then come back over to this area. First thing we're going to do is cut a slant right here. Now, we could either use a regular cut, or we could be a little more efficient and use a chamfer. Now, you can do it a variety of different ways. You can have an angle distance, in which case the default is 45 degrees, and that works great for a lot of chamfers, or maybe a 30-degree chamfer or something. Or you can make it distance to distance. You can use some vertex too, but we're going to use distance to distance. And it's going to be 0.5 in one direction and 0.414 in the other. And I'm going to chamfer up that particular edge right there. And oh wow, it came out exactly the way I was looking for. It does cut off a little bit of the circle down here, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Now sometimes you just don't know which direction you're going with, and you can change this to this, and oh, you know, we did it wrong, and then you just go back and switch them back, and that's what I'm going to do. All right, so that's all set there. Next thing we're going to do is fillet. And we're going to fillet these two edges. We want them to come right up to this edge here. And that's going to take a 0.2 fillet. And that's done there. Okay, the next job we have is to put a draft on these two surfaces here, like we did in the handle. And we're going to use that same neutral plane around which these two will kind of rotate or fold. and the angle will be 5 degrees, and see how that works. Went the other direction. So right click on it again, edit the feature, and flip the direction, and that's better. Okay, next we're going to put in the buildup right in this location here, and we're going to again use this little blip that I cut off before. So going to go to the front plane, going to sketch, look at that straight on. I'm going to make some lines. Now I'm going to actually start at this edge right here of the curve, and this is so that I always put my extruded boss inside and it will always merge right into this face. If I did it right on this face, then when it came out this way, there would be a little gap right here, and that would look pretty bad and not be what we wanted. So I'll go back to here. All right, go ahead and start with a line. Again, going from this corner out here up to the very upper left there. Then again, I'm going to stay on that curve, hit escape, then going to convert entities, going to use that one and hit the green check mark, and it comes up with this interesting pattern of a center and these 4 points out there. And the reason why it's not lined up with this line is because we put the draft on beforehand. Now we could put the draft on afterwards, it won't make a very big difference, but if you wanted to put it on later, then that'll be up to you. So I'm going to dimension again from here up to this point, 1/4 inch, and now it looks like we wanted it to look, at least for starters. Okay, should be happy with that. And now I'm going to use that sketch for another mid-plane extruded boss base, and it's to be 0.325 wide, and it looks like it gave me some trouble. So I'm going to have to go back and figure out what the problem was. Uh-oh, looks like I did not do the trimming of my sketch that I should have. Right click, come up here to edit sketch, and oh yeah, see here I have this loop. That's all very well and good, but if I have an ant crawling this way, it can take either a left or a right, and the computer says, I don't know what you mean by that, so I need to trim that down, and there they go. So that should work out a little better. And I'll do this extruded boss base again, select that. Now it shows that nice mid-plane, and I'll go with the 0.325. There you go. And that looks much better. Next up are just to put in a couple of fillets. So I'll fillet this edge here at 0.2. There we go. And then do another series of fillets here, here. Uh-oh. It's a little bit too big, 0.09. I'd like to see them. Ah, there we go. And there, there, there. There you go. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Much better. now we are going to address the teeth on the bottom. The hardest part is, as often is, to make a sketch. We'll do it on the front plane. And view it straight on so we can make use of these bottom lines here. Up, over, down, over. Okay, and then make another center line. I'm going to right click. I can just use it right here. Go, and I can make all sorts of things symmetric here. Alright, and dimension up here of 0.058. Dimension down here of 0.093. And dimension from this point to this edge, 0.205. And then a total height of 0.115. Okay, like I said, that was the hard part, so it wasn't too bad. So I'll exit sketch. Using that sketch, I will do another extruded cut. This time I'll just do through all both. Green check mark. And that's just fine. Okay, now looking at the diagram, you can see that there are 8 teeth required. So we'll have to maybe make this go 9 down. We'll see how it goes. So we're going to go with a linear pattern, and we've already chosen that. The big question is, what direction do we want it to run? We've got a nice straight line here. We want it to go in that direction, and our spacing is to be 0.145, and we need 8 of them. Looks like it's gonna fall short, so we really need 9 cuts to make 8 teeth, just like we saw on the saw example. We won't go into as much detail on that, so we'll just leave it at that. Give a green check mark here. It's that easy if you know your dimensions well. All that's left is to make some of these things look a little bit more like the real thing. So I'm also going to show you another way of cutting that has some potential errors involved and some pitfalls, but it can also be easy and effective. One thing I noticed is that this surface is very flat. On the real part, it's not, and it has a certain round to it. So I'm going to go to sketch, make a very simple sketch on the top plane here. There we go. And going to zoom in on this. Going to make a center point arc. Now I'm going to come over here, try to pick up the origin. Click here. I'm going to try to keep it fairly tangent to that very end there. And there we go. And I'm going to bring it all the way over here. Make this point coincident with that line. Make this point coincident with that line. Make this arc tangent. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Tangent to that. And then give it a dimension of 1/2 inch. Make sure that that center and the origin are horizontally aligned, and now it becomes all black. Now here's where I break the rules. I am not going to close the loop at all. It's going to be an open cut. So I'm going to hit exit sketch. Then I'm going to make a feature of an extruded cut. I'm going to use that sketch. It's going to be through all both. Notice how it does not give me nearly as many options. Blind, through all, both. That's all you get for a sketch that has no loop. And notice that it is pointing right here on the direction it's going to cut. If I click here, it's going to cut all this stuff. I don't think I want that, so I'm just going to click there again. I can also use this button to change that. So I'm going to hit green check mark, and it did just what I wanted it to do. I didn't have to put any extra boxes or dimensions or anything else. Now that can cause a problem if it doesn't recognize where you wanted to cut and it cuts the wrong thing. But this was a good application for breaking those general rules of thumb. Last but not least, there's this dumb little tab. We don't want that. It's not on the physical part, and it would probably cause problems with the physical part anyway. It's kind of sharp and so on. And it doesn't make sense to have that in the model. So I'm just going to make a very simple sketch. I'm going to use the front plane sketch. There we go. I'm just going to copy its edges here. Oh, didn't want to do that one. Try that again. Convert entities, just that edge, just that edge. Hit the green check mark. Then make another line straight over there. Then trim the remainder of that edge off. Could we have done it with just straight lines? Yeah, it probably would have been faster too. So I'm just going to take this triangle and I'm going to make a feature of an extruded cut. With that, go through all both. That's exactly what it's doing. There we go. Now if I could have made this without having to put in an extra feature just to cut off a little tab, I would have. It doesn't sit right with me to cut off something that didn't make sense for it to be there to begin with, but sometimes that has to be done. To review, we started off with the keyhole part. This is important because this is what's going to fit into the handle. And it was simply a boss extrude, but notice that we went on two sides and one was a different length than the other. We lined it up with this face here of the right plane that this is also based off of. This is based off of the top plane, and so we had different dimensions going above and below the top plane as well. Again, focusing on how this is all going to be put together in an assembly. To make this a little more realistic, we cut this surface so that it was round in 2 dimensions, so it's actually kind of spherical. And this ended up kind of being a little weird with this tab, but we used that tab in a little bit. Next thing we did was cut this chamfer down. The chamfer was the easiest thing to use, although we could have used a regular cut. We filleted those 2 edges. Then we made a draft to match the draft of the handle part of the jaw. And then we made this sketch, sketch 4, and we extruded it back and forth. This symbol means that something went funky with this sketch, and the computer had a hard time interpreting it. So it said, oh, you must be doing something fancy called selected contours. It thought I was doing something fancy. When, remember, I'd made a mistake with that. I had the sketch of that area right here, but I also had this tail going way up here. So I had to go back and modify the sketch. Well, the computer still thinks I was doing something fancy. So all you need to do after you've fixed your sketch is right click here, go up to Edit Feature, right click the sketched contours, clear the selections, and hit your green check mark. Now here is the place where I could have taken that bit out, but I didn't. So now that symbol's gone. Looks like we'll have to do the same thing down here. That's okay. Then I put in the fillet that goes up to the jaw and the fillets that go around that boss there. And then we started making the teeth. We used good sketch techniques, used symmetry and so on. Then we patterned it. Remember, we needed 9 cuts to make 8 teeth. And then we had to trim everything up. Made this a little bit more realistic, and we used that special time when we did not want to close the loop on that sketch. And then finally we cut that little blurb out. Well, remember, I had a little bit of trouble with the sketch there. Well, right click, go up to Edit Feature, Sketch Contour, Clear Selections, hit our green check mark, and that's all gone away. So that's that sketch contour thing. Remember, you have to go into the feature and edit the feature to get to that screen. Well, this was the adjustable jaw, and I hope this video helped.